What's up everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be going over the gear that I use to motovlog. It may look like a lot at first, but we're going to go through it and I'm going to show you what I use and how I use it. First, I'm just going to go through my helmet setup and what I use on my helmet. And then I'm going to dive into the settings that I use for my GoPro and my audio and how I actually set everything up when I edit. So without any further ado, let's get started. So this may not be the best setup of all time, and I honestly don't think there is one true best motovlogging setup. There's 1,000 videos out there of people troubleshooting issues and fixing issues and what setup works for them. And so honestly, you just got to go through trial and error and test different setups and different products and see what works best for you. I honestly change up my gear quite often, but I've actually stuck with this setup for quite a while now. I'm happy with it, and so I finally feel comfortable enough to make a video and go over everything that I use because it probably won't change for a while. So real quick, I'm just going to cover the camera that I use, and then I'm going to go over the audio, and then I'm going to actually install it in my helmet and walk you through how I installed everything. So before I get into any of the gear, this is the helmet that I use to motovlog. It's the Bell Star. It's one step down from their Race Star if you're looking for more of a budget option, but I've loved it so far. So the camera that I use is the GoPro Hero 7 Black. I was using the GoPro Session for a while, but I would not recommend getting one of those unless you just want an extra camera. Right now, this is the only camera that I run for my chin mount, and if you're looking for a budget option, this is great. This will record in 4K 60 frames a second. Now, it will drain the battery pretty quickly. This is what I use for my videos, and they turn out pretty decent. So if you're looking for a budget camera, if you're looking to get started, this one is good for you. If you got bank, go for the newer cameras. Go for the 8 Plus, the 10. And of course, I mount it to the helmet using the housing that comes with the GoPro. And this buckle setup, I use the short buckle with an extension. I've actually played around with a lot of different buckles, and this is what I found works best for me now. In the past, I've used this longer buckle and this J-clip that you can get for the GoPros. And this J-clip is designed to where when you clip it on the helmet, you can have your camera sitting up like this on the chin. But what I found with this type of setup, when I turn my head to check behind me, you have all this junk hanging down below your chin, and that hits my shoulder or hits my collarbone, and I hate it because I want the camera up here. I don't want it down here. And some people mount their camera upside down like this to where it's more kind of at your neck level, and I don't like that for the same reason. When I go to head check or look behind me, the camera hits my shoulder and I don't have that full range of motion. And so I'll show you how I mount the GoPro. So again, I just use this short stubby buckle and this little extension here, and so I fold it to where it's 90 degrees with that extension, tighten it down. And that way, when I slip it onto the helmet, I can actually move it up closer to where my actual chin is, just like that. And so that way it's closer to the visor, closer to the eye port, and you get a better angle. Now remember, if you're on a sport bike, you want to angle it forward just a little bit. You don't want it too high, but you don't want it too low. If you're on a super sport, you have that more aggressive seating position. If you're not in a standard riding position, like on a naked bike or a cruiser or something like that, you're going to be leaned over. And so you want your camera pointed up a little bit more so that you can get a better view of the bike and the street and what's ahead of you. This has been great for me because I don't have as much junk hanging down under my chin. So when I turn my head to look, I can see just fine. I don't hit anything. I almost forgot to cover this. This is a Ride Tech Moto chin mount. And a lot of people use the chin mounts, GoPro mounts, but I liked this one a little better just because of the way it was designed. I'll throw a couple pictures up with the Ride Tech Moto one. It has a little arm and then it has the mount. And so it's kind of sticking out a little bit. And this was just a little more of a flush design that sits up against the helmet. Now, one thing with these clips is they come with a little 3M adhesive pad. And I've had that come apart like 2 or 3 times. This is my second Ride Tech Moto mount. You can get them for about $20, and I still would recommend this 100%, but I would recommend peeling off that adhesive and use some Sugru. I love this stuff. Now, since this is my designated vlogging helmet, I don't have a problem with using this stuff because it's kind of more of a permanent set. It's like a putty, and it sets within about 30 minutes, and so you can kind of mold it to the shape that you want it to set in, and it holds like a rock. I used this in the past with one of my previous helmets, and if you take your time with it, maybe get a Q-tip, you can mold it to where it doesn't look ugly, and it's on there, man. It's on there. The only downside to this is your chin vent is going to be permanently closed or permanently open. Now I have it closed because I don't want that extra wind creating more wind noise for the mic that's inside here. The final piece for the GoPro itself is actually one of these neutral density filters or ND filters. I use the cheap freewheel ones that you can get off of Amazon, but this just goes over the lens like that, and it creates the opportunity to make your footage just a little bit better. And there's some settings that you need to use with this neutral density filter, but I'll go over that later. So for my microphone, I actually use the Purple Panda, and it comes with a little wind muff. Let's see if I can, yeah, there we go. So it's tucked in there. There's actually a couple chin vents. You see one on this side here. there we go, if the camera will focus. So there's a chin vent on both sides, and I've actually stuffed the microphone in there so it's kind of flush and it's pointed towards me. And then I've just wrapped the cord around in the lining and it comes out under this chin guard here. And this is the adapter that comes with the Purple Panda. You'll actually need this adapter in order to use your Purple Panda with your GoPro. With the Hero 7 Black, you need this mic adapter, which is the stupidest thing that GoPro's ever done. But if you have the Hero 8, 9, or 10 or up, you can get the media mod for it and that'll work just fine. I picked up these little Velcro strips from Hobby Lobby and you can just cut them to size. And I would recommend super gluing the side that you're putting on the adapter. Because of the texture of it, the adhesive won't stick well, and so every time you peel it off, the Velcro pad peels off with it. But you need this Purple Panda adapter because the GoPro only accepts a TRS microphone, and the Purple Panda microphone is a TRRS. And put simply, the adapter here on the left side is a TRS, and the Purple Panda mic on the right is a TRRS. All that means is tip ring sleeve, or tip ring sleeve. So we've got adapter number 1 and adapter number 2. Now, if you're looking for a more budget microphone option, I bet every single one of you has one of these laying around your house. And what this is an old Apple headphones cord. Chop off the headphones and you can use this to record your audio. I would recommend getting some craft fur or something like this, some kind of material that you can wrap around it to act as a wind muff. But this is definitely a more budget option. As you'll see, this is also a TRS microphone, and so you'll need that adapter as well. But this works great if you don't want to drop the 40 bucks or whatever it is to get the Purple Panda. Now, one more thing I wanted to showcase was this little dude right here. And if you don't want to mount your adapter and your GoPro separately, this is something you can get off of Amazon. It's the Ulanazi GoPro mount housing, whatever. So you can stick your GoPro in here, and then the mic adapter slips in here, and then you can just plug it right into the GoPro. Again, with me wanting the least amount of things on my chin, this was too clunky for me, so I didn't end up using this. All right, getting ready to mount everything up on the helmet, and we can't forget the Cardo Pactoc bolt that I use. This is the best option if you want music, communications, phone calls, be able to talk to other people you're riding with. This is one of the best things you can get. After I got one, I definitely couldn't go back. All right, there we go. Now, the last thing that I add to the camera, again, are these ND filters. And you can get ND 4, 8, 16, or 32, and which one you use depends on how sunny or cloudy it is outside. All right, there we go, all set up. Let's go into the settings for the GoPro, and I'll show you why I use what I use. Okay, so here are the settings that I use for the GoPro. Resolution here, I record in 2.7K. You can record in 4K, but it really drains the battery quickly. So what I do is I record in 2.7 and then upscale in post to 4K. 60 frames a second. Now, if it's dark out, the lower your frame rate, the more light it's gonna let into the camera. So the lower the frame rate is, the better your nighttime footage is gonna look. But I like to keep it at 60 just to keep that smooth 60 frames a second. Field of view, definitely super view. You can use linear or wide. Some people complain that super view distorts the image. If you're on a motorcycle, you really just want to be using super view so that you can see, you know, your hands on the handlebars, controls, what's in front of you, enough of the bike to make it enjoyable to watch. You can play around with it, but I like to use super view. Low light, auto, stabilization, auto. Now, Pro Tune, this is where we get into the fun stuff. Pro Tune on. Now, general rule of thumb is your shutter speed should be 1 over twice your frame rate. So we're gonna go to shutter speed, change that to 1 over 120. Now, what this is gonna do is it's gonna create a motion blur effect on the edges of your video. And GoPro doesn't do this without Pro Tune being on. I'll throw some clips up here showing what it looks like with Pro Tune on and off. So one side is gonna be with Pro Tune off, just with the 2.7K 60 frames a second, but no adjustments to the shutter speed, the ISO, anything like that. And then the other side is gonna be with adjustments to the shutter speed, corrections to the ISO and everything to make the footage look a little bit nicer. And you'll notice on the edges of the video, there's a little bit of motion blur effect, which makes it look just a little bit smoother, a little bit nicer to watch. And I like it a little bit better. If you don't want to go through Pro Tune and set up all these settings, you can run Pro Tune off and your videos will look just fine. GoPro does a great job. But if you want to go down the rabbit hole of adjusting all your settings and just trying to make it that much better, I would recommend using Pro Tune. If I were shooting something for like an edit that wasn't going to be slowed down, I might put this in 30 or 24 frames, but then I would need to adjust my shutter speed to 1 over 60 or 1 over 48. And you'll notice when you turn Pro Tune on and adjust this shutter speed, your camera is going to be washed out and super overexposed. And that is where this guy comes in. The neutral density filter, again, acts like a pair of sunglasses for your GoPro, and it corrects that overexposure so that you can still run your shutter speed settings in Pro Tune to get that motion blur effect, but your footage isn't overexposed. Right, moving down, AV comp, not applicable. White balance, I really only touch white balance if it's nighttime. I like my nighttime footage to kind of have that cool John Wick style, like cool blue color temperature to it. So if it's nighttime, I might go down to 3,200, maybe 4,000 Kelvin. I don't want it super blue, but just kind of a happy medium to where the footage looks the same throughout. The automatic color temperature corrector changes it, and then it just looks all funky throughout the video. But during the daytime, I don't touch the white balance at all. So for your ISO minimum, 100, ISO maximum, 400 during the day. If it's nighttime, bump it up to 800 or maybe even 1600. I wouldn't go any higher than 1600 at nighttime. It just depends on how dark it is. A lot of the places I ride, a lot of the places around me are pretty dark, so I'll typically put it at about 1600. Sharpness medium, just coupled with that motion blur effect, it looks really good. And I add some sharpening in post myself, and so I don't really like to have the high sharpness in the video already. Color, you can use flat or GoPro. Use flat if you plan to use, oh, there's a kitty. Okay, anyways, use flat if you plan to do your own color correcting in post. I like to use GoPro color just the way that I color correct. I don't add a ton of color correction. I kind of base my color correction off the GoPro color, and the GoPro color looks just fine. I add some saturation and some sharpening and things in post. I'm not gonna go over all that in this video, but if you guys enjoy this video and you want me to make a second video on what I actually do in my software when I'm editing my videos, let me know in the comments below. Raw audio off. What this does is basically applies processing to your video. When you export the video, it creates a separate audio file. I turn this off because if I want to apply any correction to my audio, I just do it in post. And frankly, it's kind of annoying to deal with. Mics, some people use auto, some people use stereo. I use wind just because I know that Purple Panda's in my helmet and I want the least amount of wind noise as possible. I haven't really messed around with whether or not that actually works well or not. Some people correct it in post. I just use wind because I know I'm going to be riding at pretty decent speeds throughout the video. But if you're kind of a city motovlogger, you don't really do highway speeds that much, I would just set it to auto. It does a pretty good job of picking it up. And there we go. Those are my GoPro settings. Now, before I end the video, I wanted to add in this little guy that I got recently. This is an external audio recorder. It is the Zoom H1N. And what this is going to do is it's going to let you capture that super crisp, super pleasing audio that you see in some of these pure sound videos on YouTube. So we have our left mic and our right mic. This is a stereo microphone. And so what you want to do is see when I clap, you don't want it to go above -6 because then you're going to get the peaking. So you want to adjust the gain as you have your bike running to where when you rev it or when you get on the throttle or when it's idling, you don't want it to peak above -6. See, like that's about right. You turn your camera on, you press record on this, and then you clap a few times. That way you have a visual and audio timestamp basically that you can match up in post. So that way you can use the footage from this and the audio from this to create this. And you can mess around with the placement of it. I like to use the wind muff and then wrap this in like a microfiber towel and then stick it in either my fanny pack or like the back pocket of my backpack while I ride. That way it's on the back of me and it's capturing the exhaust note that's coming out the back of the bike. This is what you get after you adjusted the Pro Tune settings and you use the ND filter and you use the Zoom H1N. Enjoy. The links to everything that I used in this video are going to be in the description below. They're also always in my description in my gear list that I change every time I update something that I use. But I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like and a comment and subscribe if you haven't already. Feel free to follow my Instagram linked in the description below to stay up to date on my shenanigans. But until next time, peace.